Hi there, and welcome to my studio here in Clinton, Illinois, where I've been working and creating for the past 20 years or so. And I would like to take you on the tour of the studio so you can see where all the work is being created. So if you're ready, let's go inside. Now the studio it's about 5,000 square feet, and I love to have elbow room, although I'm a little cramped at the moment, as it is far from as organized as it used to be due to a recent fire I had in one of the rooms. And I'm still kind of bogged down by that, but slowly getting to where I can start using the studio again. So you'll see a mess here and there as shelves are not put up and things are kind of sitting all over. But I hope you get a sense of the space anyway. Let me show a few pieces that are in here. Now over here I have another video where I speak a little bit more in detail about the piece, but that's the one that is destined for Habitat International, the 48th International. And another piece that was destined for that, unfortunately due to the fire again, I was not able to finish it, but here it is, kind of still waiting to be completed. I'll take it from the other side so it's not in backlight. But it's two pieces that are gonna be completed, put together in a full circle. And I actually have a small piece here, which is a smaller version of that same piece. And I can explain a little bit more what it's gonna be. So the title of it is, I have to remember, it's Dwindling Resources. And also the thought behind it is kind of what is coming our way, what future generations are going to be having to fight and deal with is due to the various, well, right now, world economy, due to food shortage, due to raising waters because of climate change, etc. There's going to be much more migration and much more than the migration we saw, for example, in Europe last summer, which was really disrupting, but what's coming, I believe, is much bigger in comparison. So here it depicts kind of two figures competing for what resources are left. But this is the front room, one of the three about equal size rooms almost. And this is where I like to complete the work. So after it's out of the kiln, after it's polished, etc., there's still a good bit that has to be done to complete. And this is kind of the room. When it's cleaned up, pieces kind of present themselves much better. You can view them, you can really experience them and see what last finishes they need. But wherever you look, there's kind of bits and pieces and projects lying, waiting, hoping to be taken up. Now here's some plumbing. That's eventually gonna become a sculpture of some sort. I had a feeling of what it's going to be, but not exact idea of how to approach it. So it's lying, waiting, and one day it's just going to pop up and become something. So lots of plumbing lying around here. There's some models for future sculptures, also kind of with the idea of plumbing. I used those in the pieces, the series I made, I called processors, and these are very much kind of like the ones I called mobile processors, and the same idea, but also kind of waiting for the right moment. There happen to be a few teddy bears here. Not all my work is kind of with deep and heavy thought behind it, and occasionally I have to make a teddy bear or a shell, a clam, and other things. But be it, there's still some boxes from when I was making those. These are kind of waiting for another step. They're wax at the moment, but they're supposed to actually be holding something inside. Exactly what, I don't know, as other projects have kind of come up and taken their place, but they're also kind of sitting here waiting for their turn. Between this room and room number 2, just take a quick peek in here. Also need a very heavy cleanup and organizing, but that'll be the plaster room, the grinding room, where a lot of mold working and cold working is being done. But the middle room is where everything has its beginning, so to speak. And that'd be where I start working with either that'd be wax, that'd be clay, or any other material, depending on what the project at hand really demands. So still not clean tabletops, as things are waiting to find the places again, but it's coming little by little. And here also waiting pieces in process and mid-process. These are smaller versions of a series of pieces with writing figures on fish I had at the last sofa show in Chicago. And the wax area here, where at the moment some small shells are waiting, wax shells. And they'll be assembled in clear glass with hearts in them, with pearls in them. So not every project is a big, major project. There's a lot of small stuff going on in between as well. And we take a quick peek into one of the other more specialized rooms. Now here is the sandblasters, with one filled with walnut shells for just cleaning glass, or others with different sizes of grit for sandblasting, cutting, and of course the diamond saw for cutting larger slabs of glass as needed. And the one last small room is basically just storage room for plasters, for silicas, for castables, investments, etc. And from here, we enter the largest room, which is in the back, and that's the kiln room. And I believe altogether there'll be about 10 furnaces or 10 kilns in here. That counting those kilns that can be combined also into being larger and smaller versions. So when I started out with one kiln, eventually 2, I never measured a piece I was working on to see whether it would fit in the kiln or not, whether it was too high or too wide or too long. And if it turned out that it did not fit in the kiln after it was invested, I simply had to just build another kiln to make it fit. And that's how I kind of ended up with a good number of kilns here, which serves me very well now, because whatever I do, it somehow always fits into the kiln. And later I've learned these have been rebuilt, so the lids actually can be raised, and you can make the kiln kind of up to 3-4 bricks higher as the elements are over-dimensioned, and they can still kind of fire a rather larger kiln space. So a mold that is too high, you can still put it in one of these kilns, raise the lid, fill in the bricks, and still fire it. So this be probably the largest kiln I had. Eventually, when I built it, it was with the vision of another section just as big to be able to put on top and actually expand the kiln to double the size. But somehow, I guess I never really kind of came to need that much firing space, let's say. So it has remained the dimension as it is. However, it has a divider inside, so one can still fire one half or the other. They are not equal size, it's slightly different sizes. Or one can take the divider out and fire it as one big kiln. And a little bit of that same thing is kind of the thing with this kiln here. See, I'll move a couple of things out so I can show it a little better. And one can fire it as it is in the picture here, with the bottom section only, or one can add one section or even a second section on top. And these sections also can be fired individually on their own, so in a sense, with all the combinations, probably I kind of have 5 kilns here of various sizes. But this kiln I have used in the instances where I've made full-size or life-size figures. So a life-size figure with the reservoir and everything for glass, I stack both the 2 extra sections on top of the bottom section, and that'll be the size for casting a standing life-size figure. And if one can kind of see beyond the mess of things waiting to find their places again, there's a melting furnace in the back there, so whenever I need to ladle glass or blow glass, I fire that guy up. And in here also somewhere, there is a metal smelter for bronzes, for other types of metal, and also a little blacksmithing whenever that is kind of needed is possible. My biggest helper in here, that'll be Mr. Clark, and he helps me out quite a bit. Some of the molds I produce here, they get so big, so even just turning them around when needed kind of really craves quite some muscle. So Mr. Clark here is a great helper to have. And lastly, occasionally when the sun comes out after a long winter, it's wonderful to put a table out here and work outside in the open air. And around here, kind of in the countryside, south of Clinton, nice and quiet and not much disturbance. So one can work undisturbed, and if there's something I like, that is exactly that. So that'll be it for the quick tour of the studio, and I hope that you enjoy kind of following me around a little bit and get a look around at the facilities and get a sense of where the pieces you see both online and in the galleries have their origin. So for now, you all be good, and I guess I'll see you either at the galleries or other venues where we may meet. So for now, I'll get back to work. Take care. Now, in addition to the studio, I have another building where I have work displayed, work that isn't currently in gallery inventories. Some newer work, quite a bit of older pieces also. But this way I kind of, well, get to see it myself, which is nice, otherwise you forget what is around, but also people visiting have a chance to come and see some of the work firsthand and experience it. So let me go around. I can tell you a little bit about my thought process behind some of these pieces here. Now, this first one here by the door, that's a series I was working on for a couple of years. I called them processors. And these pieces, they kind of derived from me living next to a city south of me here, Decatur, Illinois, where ADM has a huge food processing plant. And driving by there, you kind of get the smell, and you can just imagine kind of food passing through these immense and numerous tubes and channels the plant consists of. And I kind of made these like tubes and channels, but also kind of with the funnels there as representing kind of where the good ingredients enter, and as they go through the process, the tubes here, whatever comes out is what we decide to buy and consume. Not really a pleasant thought in my mind. And there's a couple of three pieces of these in here. There's another processor here, and a third version over here. Some of these were more three-dimensional, and those were called mobile processors, as they kind of looked almost like insect or some entities that were kind of moving along as they were actually kind of doing the same task of processing. I don't have any examples of these right here, but they can be found online for those who may be interested. Another series I was working on for a good few years are the waiting figures. Just waiting for something, not specified what and when that something may occur. And I think the thought process behind these can best be described in just one sentence, and that'll be Samuel Beckett's play Waiting for Godot. That's the whole sentiment behind some of these pieces. And one thing that kind of really always have interested me is also kind of how birds come and randomly sit on wires, sometimes 2, 3 next to each other, 5, 6, whatever. But that randomness is something I really enjoyed, and I tried to kind of put some of that into these pieces. So figures without features, kind of anonymous figures waiting for something and not doing anything else. As we move in here, I got another representations of another series, which are kind of standing female figures mostly. And these are made of bits and pieces, kind of balanced on each other, and they kind of represent in my mind the bits and pieces that we are made of and what kind of shapes our identities. We get influenced, from as we grow up, from parents, from teachers, from friends, and from many, many other different places and persons. And what we are getting out of this, or the bits and pieces that we are given, are the bits and pieces that we have to kind of build our lives on. And those pieces may not always fit together comfortably, and it is up to us to somehow either balance them or glue them together in the best we can, and try to balance it through life as gracefully as we can. And that's basically kind of the idea behind these figures here. Before these, I had been making 3D work, cast 3D work, but had a long pause as I kind of got tired of always having to work the surface after these came out of the molds, and you always end up with kind of the same surface, the sandblasted, It was the same treatment, and you couldn't really work with the surface of the glass without ending up kind of the same place almost. But eventually, as I found new investment materials where you could actually get a result out of the kiln without having to cold work, different imperfections away, it was possible to maintain all the surface that was put into the wax or clay that they were originally made from. And that kind of regained my interest. And one thing that I really enjoy with these is kind of the very, very expressed textured surface that these figures have. And there are a few more representations of these figures here. Other pieces, there's some pieces here which have a little more kind of sad origin, in that I started this series just after having lost my younger sister. She passed away, and it kind of really pulled the rug from under me, and I had a hard time really regaining my equilibrium and find meaning and sanity in existence altogether. So these pieces kind of represent the seeking, the searching, both for meaning and for new balance in life, and just looking for a way to move on. And eventually, as time went on, these pieces kind of morphed and merged into some other work, kind of with a little bit of the same technique. And not too many pieces representing exactly that here, but there's kind of one here, and that's they represent a more kind of meditative stage. And then after that, I could move on and get back to where I was before. Another series represented here are the boxes, a series I very much enjoyed working with. And these for me represents kind of when one just cannot contain anymore, when one is about to burst. And it was also during the time of the increased terrorist attacks. It was the time of the beginning of the Iraq War, and it was almost more than one could contain. And these bundles here, boxes, were strapped and just about to burst with whatever they contained. However, on display, I heard from a lot of people who kind of took their own take into these and put their own experiences into it, and they saw it very much as the bundles that the refugees were hurtling along as they kind of moved from one place to another. Many also kind of connected it with the persecution of the Jewish people seen on the roads with their suitcases and the bundles. And for one, I certainly very much welcome when people come in and make the piece their own by projecting their own experiences into them. And it certainly enriches me as well, so I very much appreciate that. In this room, another piece I just want to say a few words about. That'll be the chains I was working on. Also kind of same period with the 9/11 attack, with the increased terrorist activity, Bush and all. And these are big chains that suggest that something large has been turned loose in the world. And very much the last link being broken, it kind of gives one the idea that there's something out there that should have been chained. Moving along towards the other rooms, there are the reverse painted panels, wall pieces. And these I've been working on and off for many years now. A technique I kind of developed a long time ago. And it's done by having a negative impression, a negative bas relief if you want, from the back of the glass. And when it's reverse painted from the back, viewed from the other side, that'll be from the front, it appears three-dimensional. Now this piece here, probably one of the first kind of larger pieces I made. As I spend my summers in Denmark, there are beaches all over. You always see tourists, very much German tourists, lying there, often in their birthday finest. As beaches are free in Denmark, you can be closed or not after your own preference. But very often you see these rather large ladies kind of lying, sizzling on a beach, and I just had to kind of make a representation of that. So the title of this one here is Am Strande, which in German is at the beach, sizzling. Another piece sitting on the floor here, same technique, and inserted in metal is Mona with the mirror. And there's a third piece over here, also same technique. And let me move along, some older pieces, the Roulette-O-Matic from the series of Guns Save Lives. An ironic title I'll have to add. And yeah, and here I have some of the oldest pieces still sitting around. And but let's move to the last room here. Quickly, there's one piece also reverse painted. Really a small favorite of mine, and I'm kind of glad it's still around here. And it probably is gonna stay with me. Blueberry Lips, this is called. A small portrait. A few other pieces. I'll show a few more of the boxes. These are clear boxes, and you just in these you can just feel and sense that there's something inside, but what it is exactly that has to remain a mystery. But also still the same, the whole concept, strapped down and just being kept from totally bursting. I'll just say a few words about is a box on the wall, and it just kind of occurred to me that apparently I've been making boxes for many years. But these pieces I actually enjoyed displayed closed, as they're kind of as I think of them, private rooms where the viewer is just invited to have a peek, and after that they can close the piece up again. But the boxes open up like this and kind of reveals what is inside. This is entitled The Red Room, and when you're done, you go and close and give the occupant its privacy back. So. Well, that's about it for the studio tour. I'm really pleased that you decided to tag along, and I hope also you kind of enjoyed some of what you saw, kind of following me around a little bit. and hearing about the work also. But that's it, and I hope that you at some point make it to Habitat when the work is on display there, so you can see the actual work in person. So for right now, so long.